There's a ritual that happens every single winter across rural America. And if you've been farming for any length of time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It happens in January or February, usually on a gray, overcast day that matches your mood. You put on your clean shirt, you grab your balance sheet, and you drive to town feeling the weight of what's about to happen. You park in front of that brick building with the nice landscaping and the professional sign. You walk into a sterile office that smells like stale coffee and floor wax, and you sit across the desk from a loan officer who is likely half your age, who wears a suit that costs more than your work boots, and who has never planted a single seed in his entire life. This is the renewal meeting, and let's be completely honest about what it really is. It's a walk of shame. You are essentially begging for permission to do your job for another year. You're asking a stranger who doesn't understand farming to let you plant your own land. He looks at your numbers with a critical eye. He frowns at your debt-to-asset ratio. He taps on his calculator while you sit there wondering what he's thinking. And you sit there sweating, hoping with everything you have that he says yes. When he finally slides that stack of papers across the desk, that operating note, that lien on your crop, that lien on your machinery, you sign it without much choice. You sign away your freedom for another 12 months, and you verify on paper that the bank technically owns the crop before it even sprouts from the ground. We have accepted this as normal in modern agriculture. We tell ourselves, well, farming takes capital. You have to borrow money to make money. I'm here to tell you that normal is actually broke. Normal is constant stress. Normal is waking up at 3 a.m. wondering if you're going to lose the farm your grandfather built with his bare hands. The operating line of credit is not a lifeline like they tell you. It's a leash. And right now, with interest rates hovering near 9 or 10%, that leash is choking the life out of family farms across America. Today, we're going to do something radical that most farm advisors won't talk about. We're not just going to discuss lowering interest rates or refinancing. We're going to talk about eliminating debt entirely. I'm going to walk you through a 5-year strategic battle plan to fire your banker for good. We call it the cash-only detox. And I want to be upfront with you. It's going to be painful, and it's going to require you to swallow your pride. But at the end of it, you'll have the one thing that no bank can ever foreclose on: true financial freedom. Before we start laying out the plan, we have to look at the math. And I don't mean the simple math. I mean the ugly math that nobody wants to face. Most farmers think the cost of the operating note is just the interest rate they see on paper. You think, okay, I'm borrowing $500,000 at 9% interest. That hurts, but I can manage it. But you're missing the much bigger picture here. The interest is just the tip of the iceberg, and the real killer is something called opportunity cost that most people never calculate. Let's create a realistic scenario to illustrate this. Let's say you farm 1,000 acres of corn. To put that crop in the ground, seed, fertilizer, chemical, fuel, it costs you roughly $800 per acre on average. That's an $800,000 bill you have to pay before you see any income. If you're operating as a credit farmer, you borrow that entire amount from the bank. You pay the bank 9% interest on that money, which means $72,000 is gone right off the top before you harvest a single bushel. But here's the kicker that changes everything. If you were a cash farmer instead, and you walked into your seed dealer's office in December and slapped a check on the counter for the full amount, what happens? He gives you what's called a prepay discount, which is usually around 5 to 8% depending on the supplier. Same discount applies with fertilizer suppliers and chemical dealers. They all reward cash customers. So let's do the math again and see the real picture. The financial swing between paying the bank 9% interest and getting a 7% discount from the dealer is a full 16% difference. 16% on $800,000 is $128,000 in total difference. Let that number sink in for a minute. $128,000, that's enough for a brand new pickup truck, a family vacation, and a full year of college tuition for your kid, all completely wasted. Every single year you operate on credit, you're effectively taking a massive pile of your cash and setting it on fire in the bank parking lot while they watch and collect the ashes. The system is deliberately designed to keep you poor and dependent. The bank and the input suppliers are splitting the margin that should rightfully be in your pocket. Breaking this cycle isn't just about feeling safe or reducing stress, it's about instantly increasing your net profit by double digits through simple math. But wait, it actually gets worse than just the interest costs. Debt doesn't just steal your margin, it steals your ability to market your grain strategically. This is the secret that wealthy farmers understand completely, and broke farmers ignore to their own detriment. When you owe the bank $500,000 on an operating note, when is that note typically due? Usually December or January at the latest. So, what happens at harvest time? You're sitting in the combine harvesting corn, and the market price is usually at its lowest point of the entire year because there's a massive glut of grain hitting the market all at once. Basis is wide and the price is absolutely terrible. But the banker is calling your phone and saying, hey Bob, don't forget, we need to clean up that note by the end of the year. So what are you forced to do? You have to sell immediately, even though you know the price is bad. You sell your corn at the bottom of the market because you have a debt payment due that cannot wait. You have what I call marketing paralysis. You cannot hold the grain for better prices because you don't actually own the grain, the bank does. Now imagine the cash farmer's position in that same scenario. He has no operating note hanging over his head. Harvest comes and the price is low, but he doesn't care at all. He puts the corn in his bins and welds the door shut if he has to. He waits patiently for the market to improve. He waits until June or July when the market typically rallies due to lower supply. He sells when the basis is tight and the price is high, which could be months later. He might make 50 cents or even a full dollar more per bushel than you did selling at harvest, and all he had to do was wait. On 200 bushels per acre, that's another $200 per acre of pure profit with no additional work. So when you add it all up, between the input discounts and the marketing gains, the cash farmer is making $300 per acre more than the credit farmer on the exact same land, growing the exact same crop with the same equipment. That's exactly why the rich farmers get richer and the borrowers eventually get foreclosed on. It's a mathematical certainty over time. All right, enough doom and gloom. How do we actually fix this problem? The reality is you can't just stop borrowing tomorrow if you have zero cash reserves. If you have no money, you can't buy seed to plant, so the transition must be gradual and strategic, or you'll starve. We call this approach the 20% rule. In year one, your goal is not to pay off everything and go completely debt-free overnight. Your realistic goal is to self-finance 20% of your input costs from your own cash. If you need $500,000 for spring planting, your mission is to find $100,000 of your own cash to bring to the table. Where do you find $100,000 just lying around when you feel cash poor? You have to get aggressive and honest about what you really need. Look around your shed and your property with fresh eyes. I can guarantee you have toys that generate absolutely zero ROI. The camper you use twice a year at most. The boat that sits covered most of the summer. The third backup tractor that hasn't moved in 6 months. The ATVs that the kids ride occasionally. Sell them, and I'm completely serious about this. Sell anything that is not directly producing a crop or generating income for your operation. I know it hurts emotionally and it feels like you're going backward or admitting defeat. But you're not. You're building what I call a war chest to fight for your freedom. Take that cash from selling equipment and put it in a separate high-yield savings account where you can't touch it casually. Call it the Freedom Fund and treat it as sacred. In December, use that fund to prepay for 20% of your seed needs with cash and get the discount. When you walk into the bank for your annual renewal meeting, you borrow 20% less than you did last year. It feels like a small victory, and honestly, it is small, but you've just turned the Titanic around. You're now financing part of your own destiny instead of being completely dependent. Now we move into the middle phase of this transition, and this is honestly the most painful part, emotionally. To accelerate this process and build cash faster, we need to stop the bleeding in your operation. We need to take a hard look at your entire land portfolio. Most farmers are what I call acreage addicts. We're obsessed with size and scale. We brag about how many acres we run as if it's a competition. But I'd bet money that if you actually looked at your detailed data, you have specific fields that are losing you money every single year. Maybe the cash rent is too high compared to what the ground produces. Maybe the soil quality is poor and yields are terrible. Maybe it's a 20-mile drive to get there with the planter, which wastes time and fuel. If a farm doesn't make a profit on paper before you even plant it, based on realistic yields and prices, you have absolutely no business farming it. You need to have a hard conversation with your landlords, and this takes courage. You go to them and say, "Here are my actual numbers. At this rental rate, I'm losing money every year. I need to lower the rent to this amount, or unfortunately, I have to let the farm go." If they say no and won't negotiate, you walk away and you don't look back. Let your neighbor rent it if he wants to. Let him lose money on it. Let him subsidize the landlord's property taxes with his own equity while you protect yours. You're playing a completely different game. Now, you're trading volume for margin, which is what smart businesses do. When you drop those unprofitable acres, two critical things happen simultaneously. First, your input bill goes down significantly, so you need less borrowed cash to operate. Second, you free up your machinery and your time to focus exclusively on the good ground that actually makes you money. Take every single dollar you saved from not farming those bad acres and pour it directly into your Freedom Fund. By year 3, you should be self-financing 50% or more of your crop from your own cash. Now we need to address the invisible leak that sinks most ships: family living expenses. In the good years when corn was trading at $7 a bushel, we got used to living high on the hog and spending freely. New trucks every few years, kitchen remodels, expensive travel sports for the kids, all the lifestyle upgrades came naturally. We started treating the farm checking account like a personal ATM that never runs out. This has to stop immediately if you want to break free. You need to implement what I call a strict salary cap for your family. You sit down and determine what your family actually needs to survive comfortably. Not extravagantly, but comfortably. Let's say it's $4,000 a month for your household. You set up an automatic transfer from the farm account to a separate personal account. The farm pays you $4,000 on the first of every month like clockwork. And that is it. No exceptions. No dipping back in when things get tight. If the personal account runs dry before the month ends, you don't dip back into the farm account to cover the difference. You eat rice and beans. You skip the restaurant meals. You don't buy the new boots until next month. You have to protect the operating capital in your farm account like it's sacred, because it truly is. If you steal from your operating fund to pay for lifestyle expenses, you're stealing from next year's crop and forcing yourself right back to the bank for more loans. If you follow this strict financial diet, selling unnecessary equipment, cutting unprofitable land, capping your salary, and reinvesting every dime of profit, by year 5, something truly magical happens. You finish harvest and sell some grain, you look at your bank account balance and you sit there for a moment in disbelief, and you realize you have enough cash sitting there to buy all your seed for the coming year, all your fertilizer, all your fuel, everything you need. You pay the suppliers directly with cash and get those massive discounts that have been going to other farmers. And then January comes around, the time for that dreaded renewal meeting. Imagine this scene, because it's going to feel incredible. You drive to the bank, just like you have for years. You sit down with that same loan officer who's been reviewing your file annually. He has the paperwork ready on his desk. He smiles and says, "Ready to sign for this year's line of credit?" And you look him straight in the eye, you shake his hand firmly, and you say with complete confidence, "No thanks. I don't need it this year. I'm completely self-financed." The look on his face will be absolutely priceless, trust me. You walk out of that bank, and I promise you, the air smells sweeter and the sky looks bluer than it ever has before. You don't owe anyone a single dime on your crop. If it doesn't rain in July, yes, you'll be stressed about the weather, but you won't be facing bankruptcy. You can survive a bad year because you have no payments choking you. I know this entire plan sounds incredibly hard, and I know it sounds radical compared to how everyone else operates. It requires you to be the weird farmer in your community, the one who drives a 10-year-old truck while the neighbors pull up in brand new ones. But here's what you need to remember. You don't know their balance sheet, and they might be just one bad harvest away from an auction, no matter how successful they look. Transitioning to cash-only operations is the ultimate insurance policy for your family's legacy. When you eventually pass this farm down to your children, do you want to pass them a thriving business, or do you want to pass them a crushing burden? Do you want to leave them land they own, or do you want to leave them a relationship with a banker they have to beg from? Start your detox today. Look at your shed and be honest about what you really need. Look at your budget and find that first 20% you can save. Breaking the chains of debt is the hardest thing you'll ever do in farming, but I promise you the view from the other side is worth every single drop of sweat. Keep your chin up, keep your pencil sharp, and keep your money in your own pocket where it belongs. I'll see you in the next video.